Hi, this is Sam Blumenfeld, author of Alpha-Phonics. We've been teaching you the English alphabetic system. Alpha-Phonics has 128 lessons, and you have learned 71 of them. And so we're going to continue to teach you to read English. As I told you at the very beginning, and I like to reiterate it, we have 26 letters in our alphabet, but we have 44 sounds. And so many of our letters stand for more than one sound. For example, the letter A has a short sound, A, and a long sound, A. And that is what we're going to be taking up today, the long vowels. And the reason why we've waited until lesson 72 to start teaching the long vowels is because they all have more than one spelling form. Now, the most common spelling form for long A is A consonant E. For example, if you take the word at and add an E to it, you get 8. If you take the word hat and add an E to it, you get hate. If you take the word fat and add an E to it, you get fate. In other words, to spell long A, you have A consonant E. Now, some people call that final E as a silent E, but it's not silent at all. You see, it's because the three letters, the A, the consonant, and the E, are responsible for that sound. You know, I'm sure that some of you know some French, and you know that the word for water in French is spelled E-A-U. O, it's pronounced O. Now, there isn't an O in the spelling. So you can't say that any of those letters are silent. In other words, it's the spelling form that stands for that sound. It's the E-A-U that stands for O, and it's the same in English. We don't have any, quote, silent letters, unquote. All letters represent sound. In any case, we introduced the long A first by the spelling form A consonant E. And in lesson 73, we give all of those long A words in their spelling families. For example, ACE is ace, and then you have face, pace, race, brace, grace, etc. Under ADE, you have fade, made, wade, blade, etc. Under AKE, you have bake, cake, fake, quake, shake, etc. And at the bottom of that column, we have the word ACHE, which is pronounced ache, as I have an ache in my back. Now, that is the primary way that we spell long A. But now we have a second way that, and incidentally, after we give you those words in that spelling family, we give you in lesson 74 sentences with all of those words. By the way, in lesson 73, in the cave, Dave, gave family, at the bottom you have, H-A-V-E. Now, why is that pronounced have? I have no idea. It's spelled H-A-V-E and pronounced have. Now, incidentally, in the word behave, it's regular. But by itself, H-A-V-E is pronounced have. Also, in the bear care family, at the bottom, in a box, we have A-R-E, which is not air, it's R. A-R-E-R, like we are going somewhere, are. And again, as I say, and again, we don't know why we have these, you might say, these exceptions or these irregularities, but they exist. And since they are such common words, they are easily learned. Now, let's go to lesson 75. Well, we are now going to learn long A as spelled A-I. Long A spelled A-I. The I is not silent. It's the A-I together that stands for the long A. And we have lots of words in that spelling family. For example, you have bail, fail, gale, pale. You have aid, laid, made, paid. And in that spelling family, you have S-A-I-D, which is pronounced said. It rhymes with read. There is no such word as said. It's said. And in the Cain, rain family, we have A-G-A-I-N, which is pronounced again, and A-G-A-I-N-S-T, which is against. So these are the few exceptions to the rule and are easily learned because they're common words. In lesson 76, all of those AI words are put in sentences. For example, Gail will wait in the rain for the train. Or the mail is late. And you could see the two spellings in the mail is late, M-A-I-L and L-A-T-E. And incidentally, you will notice that there are two ways to spell mail. There's M-A-L-E and M-A-I-L. They both sound alike. But the first, M-A-L-E, refers to the gender, the male gender, while M-A-I-L refers to the letters that you receive in the post. So let's go on now to lesson 77, in which we find a third way to write long A. It's spelled A-Y. And again, as I said with the A-I, the I is not silent, and the A and the Y is not silent in such words as bay, day, fay, etc. A-Y is simply a spelling form. A spelling form. So now we have three ways in which we spell long A. We have A consonant E, A-I, and A-Y. And incidentally, we also have a few words in which A is spelled E-Y, as in such words obey and they. In lesson 78, we put those words into sentences. For example, can Faye play with Kay? Or Faye will stay with Kay all day. Now in lesson 79, we find another way of spelling long A, E-I, as in such words as rain, like the reins that you use to control the behavior of a horse, rein, R-E-I-N, vein, as the vein in your arm, V-E-I-N, and also we have another spelling form. You might call it an archaic spelling form, in which at one time the words were pronounced differently, but the spelling has come down to us as it is, E-I-G-H. E-I-G-H. The four letters stand for the sound A. Just as in French, E-A-U, those three letters stand for O, in English, E-I-G-H stands for A, even though there is no A in the spelling form. So that's what we're dealing with when we're learning English in our spelling. And most of these words are quite common, are easily learned. And of course, if you write cursive, your hand will become acquainted and your hand will gain the knowledge. For example, when you're writing way, W-E-I-G-H, W-E-I-G-H, and the way your fingers form the letters is something that is then transmitted to your brain. Now, so here we are. We've learned all these different ways of writing long A. A consonant E, A-I, A-Y, E-Y, E-I, and E-I-G-H. And that's why English spelling is a little complicated. In some languages, long A is written only one way. In our language, it's written 5 different ways. But that's all right because, you know, in the etymology of a language, you get the history of the development of the language. And incidentally, of course, when in English we have many words that sound alike but mean different things. You take, for example, mane. You have M-A-N-E, the mane, the lion's mane, that is all that beautiful hair on a lion's head. That's a mane, or a horse's mane. Then you have M-A-I-N, which stands for Main Street. And then you have M-E-I-N. Now, I'm sure you've seen that word on many Chinese menus. And what is it? And what's the pronunciation of M-E-I-N in the phrase chow mein? Is Maine. Long A, M-E-I-N. 3 different manes, 3 different meanings, 3 different spellings. Now we go on to lesson 80, in which we review all of the long A spellings: face, brain, cake, trail, vein, vein, freight, eighth, etc. And in lesson 81, I show you how you have 3 different meanings for words that sound alike. Rain, rain, and rain, for example. R-A-I-N is the rain that falls from heaven. R-E-I-N is what you use to control the behavior of a horse. R-E-I-G-N is the reign or the rule of a sovereign, like Queen Elizabeth's reign, etc. Now, in lesson 82, we can make a whole bunch of 2-syllable words using just the long A spellings. For example, such words as payday, railway, spaceship, engage, waitress, mailman, embrace, obtain, tailgate, playmate, etc. And of course, you can make up all kinds of sentences that you like. Now in lesson 83, we take up another vowel sound in English. You know, there are more than just the 10 long and short vowels. You have the A-E-I-O-U, you have the A-E-A-A, but now you have a vowel sound, or. We learn the or spelling with the double L, for example. The A-L-L was all, B-A-L-L was fall. Now there are 2 other ways of writing the or sound, A-U and A-W. And we have the A-U in such words as Paul, the name Paul, fault, vault, fraud, daunt, haunt, AU, pause, cause, and with the AW spelling, you have such words as jaw, law, paw, raw, etc., brawl, fawn, lawn, brawn, drawn, etc. And in Lesson 84, we have sentences using those spelling forms. Now, there's another sound that the letter A is used to represent, the ah sound. So now we have a, or, and ah. The letter A represents 4 different sounds with different spellings. For example, the word father, F-A-T-H-E-R. The word Java, J-A-V-A. Drama, D-R-A-M-A. Ah. Now, in Lesson 85, we provide all of the different spelling families in which we use the ah sound. For example, bar, car, far, jar, star, or bard, hard, yard, charge, or arc, dark, park, Clark, stark, or in such words as farm, charm, yarn, harp, or art, cart, dart, part. Now, if you'll notice that when that AR spelling form is preceded by a W, it changes the sound. For example, WAR is not war, even though it's in the AR spelling family. It's pronounced war. WARD is ward. WARM is warm. It's not warm, it's warm. And it has a lot to do with the difficulty of forming those words if you try to make them sound irregular. Warm. There's no such word as warm, but there is a word warm, but it's spelled W-A-R-M, etc. And also quart, Q-U-A-R-T. It's not quart, it's quart. And also D-W, dwarf. Dwarf. It's not dwarf, it's dwarf. Now, in Lesson 86, we put all of those words, or many of those words, into sentences. Park the car in the yard, said Art. Mark's farm has a barn. Mark's arm has an itch. Marge drank a quart of milk, etc. Now, in Lesson 87, we take up the long E. And with long E, you will find the same problem, many different spelling forms for just that one sound. The most common spelling form for long E is double E, as in, for example, bee, B-E-E, you know, the little bee that stings you, or fee, something you might pay, for some service. We have lots of spelling families using the double E: deed, feed, seed, speed, weak, cheek, sleek, deem, team, queen, seen, like he was seen, but B-E-E-N in English is pronounced bin. It rhymes with in. Like, I've been going to the movies once a week. Been. Or where have you been? It's It's pronounced as if it were spelled B-I-N, but it's written, spelled B-E-E-N. As I say, that's just another one of these irregularities. Also, in the word kneel, it's not spelled N-E-E-L, it's spelled K-N-E-E-L. The K-N, you will find the K-N spelling form in other words as well. And then, of course, you have the single E, be, he, we, me, and she. And those are very common words, and so you won't have any problem learning them. It's just, now in lesson 88, we have a whole page of sentences in which we use the double E words. In lesson 89, we take up another spelling form of long E, and that's EA. As I said before, there are no silent letters. EA together signify the sound E. EA represents E in such words as tea. I had a cup of tea. It's spelled T-E-A. Now there's another T, a T-double-E, which of course is what you put a golf ball on when you're playing golf. So we have an awful lot of words in which long E is spelled E-A. For example, leak, L-E-A-K. Then, of course, there's that onion called leek, L-E-E-K. That sort of looks like a very large scallion. We have such words as Jean, J-E-A-N, or hear, H-E-A-R, clear, C-L-E-A-R, heat, H-E-A-T, meat, M-E-A-T. Of course, there's also the other meat, M-double-E-T, which stands for, I'm going to meet someone later on. Meet. So we have M-E-A-T and M-E-E-T. But you have to realize that if you're going to speak of the word that represents beef or steak, then you have to spell it M-E-A-T. You can't go to the supermarket and expect to find the word M-E-E-T over the meat counter. It'll be spelled M-E-A-T. And so go over those words in lesson 89. Go down the columns, repeat the columns of the words and the columns of words, and that'll help you learn to spell, because you will see which spellings are in, or which words are in various spelling families. Now, in lesson 89, we take up all of the exceptions to the EA rule. For example, S-W-E-A-T is not pronounced sweet. It's pronounced sweat. T-H-R-E-A-T is pronounced threat, like a short E. The word dealt, D-E-A-L-T, is not dealt, it's dealt, and is pronounced like a short E, dealt. The words bear, pair, tear, wear, and swear all are spelled with an E-A, but they sound like a long A. They don't sound like long E, they sound like long A. Bear, pair, tear. Now, T-E-A-R also stands for the word tear, like the tears in your eyes. So you've got two T-E-A-R's. One is tear, like to tear up something, and the other is tear, like tears in your eyes. That's another instance of a homonym. That is, two words that sound alike, are spelled different, and have different meanings. And of course, then we have words like dead and head and lead, which are also pronounced as short E. Now there is, and of course in Lesson 90, we use all of the irregular words plus the regular EA words in sentences. Now in Lesson 91, we take up a third way of spelling long E. E consonant E, as in such words as gene or seen or here or Eve or Steve or these or Pete. And we do have some irregular words in that spelling form. You have THERE, which is pronounced there, like he went over there, or WHERE, which is pronounced where are you going, or WERE, were, like what were you doing, and of course EYE, which is the word for I. EYE has E, consonant E, but it's pronounced I. And that's because we have three I's in English. We have the long I by itself. We have the IE in such words as lie. And we have EYE, which is I. So that's why we have these irregular spellings. And they're easily learned because, as I've said before, they're common words. And in Lesson 91, we also have sentences with all of those words so that you'll become acquainted with how they appear in the context of sentences. Lesson 92, believe it or not, we have another spelling for long E. So what have we had? We've had double E, EA, E consonant E, and now we have IE, as in such words as brief, BRIEF, chief, CHIEF, grief, GRIEF, or field, FIELD, fierce, FIERCE, peace, PIECE. And the exceptions in that spelling form are friend, FRIEND, and the word receive, RECEIVE. And of course that word follows the common, you might say, rule, I before E except after C. So in such words as receive and deceive, the E will come before the I. And in that lesson, we also have sentences in which those words are used. And then there is another way of writing long E. And it's usually at the ends of words. And it is the letter Y, which is pronounced long E in such words as mommy, Danny, bunny, penny, fussy, Harry, marry, very, city, pity, silly, Sally, Billy, etc. There are some exceptional spellings. For example, the word busy is spelled B-U-S-Y. It is not buzzy. It's not bussy. It's busy. And P-R-E-T-T-Y is pronounced pretty, as if it were a short I, pretty. But the end is the long E sound written as Y. And incidentally, the word key, K-E-Y. The EY spelling is there, as in, which is a spelling all its own. In lesson 94, we have sentences with all of those words that you've just learned. The day was chilly and foggy. Debbie is very pretty. Kenny felt dizzy. Daddy was busy, etc. Now also, when words ending with Y become plurals, we spell the plural I-E-S. For example, baby and babies, B-A-B-I-E-S. Berry and berries, B-E-R-I-E-S. Puppy and puppies, P-U-P-P-Y, P-U-P-P-I-E-S, etc. In lesson 96, we take up all of the long E spelling forms, the double E, the E-A, the Y at the end, the E consonant E, and the I-E. So we have lots of ways of writing long E, and all you have to do is know which words are spelled in which way. There's no easy way to learn spelling in English. You simply have to do enough reading and writing so that you will know what spelling is required for the particular word you want to spell, or the particular word you want to write. Now, if we go on to lesson 97, there are sentences, the whole page of sentences in which all of the long E words, the EA words, the Y words, the IE words, the E consonant E words are used. So you'll see how all of these different spellings pronounce the word with a long E, and why you have to simply learn how to spell it. There's no shortcut to spelling in English. Now in lesson 98, we take up long I. And in long I, we have the same problem that we had with the long E and the long A. There is more than one way to spell that particular sound. For example, there's just plain I. The word I, the first person, I. I am, I take, I ran. And then you have Y, which is pronounced long I, as in my, dry, fly, sky, S-K-Y. S-K-I is pronounced ski, like he went skiing. Spy, S-P-Y. Now there's another way of spelling long I, I-E, as in lie and tie and pie. I had cherry pie yesterday, P-I-E. And of course there are several words in which long I is spelled U-Y, as in buy, if you want to buy something, or guy, like he is a very nice guy, etc. And in that lesson we also have sentences in which we use all of those long I spellings. Now, long I is also spelled I consonant E, as in ice, dice, rice, or hide, side, or smile, or mine, pine, swine, or stripe, or hire, or quite, or dive, or five, jive, wise, etc. Now there are some exceptions. For example, in the IVE spelling family, you have GIVE, which is pronounced give, or LIVE, which is pronounced live. And in the IFE family, like life, wife, we have knife. Knife is not spelled N-I-F-E, it's spelled K-N-I-F-E, which is also a spelling form for the consonant N. In Lesson 99, we have a page full of sentences so that you can read all of these words in sentence form and see how they are used and also how they are spelled. Now, Lesson 100, believe it or not, we have another way of writing long I, I-G-H. It's an archaic spelling, I-G-H, probably because at one time these words were pronounced differently. You have high, H-I-G-H, fight, F-I-G-H-T, right, R-I-G-H-T, bright, B-R-I-G-H-T. And in that lesson, we also provide sentences with those words in them. Now, in Lesson 101, we actually learn another vowel sound, or, as in ought, fought, and caught. Actually, it's the same as the or sound, but it's spelled in an archaic form. For example, bought. I bought some bread, B-O-U-G-H-T. Now, the same could be pronounced the same if you spelled it B-A-W-T, I bought, or B-A-U-T, bought. But the correct spelling of the word of the past tense to buy is B-O-U-G-H-T. Common word, easy to learn. Now, some of those words that have that pronunciation are spelled with an A-U-G-H-T, as in daughter, or taught. I was taught a golf lesson, T-A-U-G-H-T. The word T-H-O-U-G-H, though, is pronounced though. Now, these are words generally easy to learn because of their distinctive spelling and, of course, because they're quite common words. And we have some sentences to help you learn the spellings of those words, like I bought candy and gum, Paul caught the ball, Dad taught a tennis lesson, etc. In Lesson 102, we find out that the F sound can also be spelled GH, as in such words as rough, R-O-U-G-H, or cough, C-O-U-G-H, laugh, L-A-U-G-H, laughter, with the GH spelling. And we provide some sentences so that you will see those words in the context of sentences. Now we go to the long O. And of course, as you've guessed, there are more than one way of writing long O. The most common way, of course, is O consonant E, as in such words as robe, R-O-B-E, code, C-O-D-E, loan, L-O-N-E, phone, P-H-O-N-E, rope, R-O-P-E, score, S-C-O-R-E, pose, P-O-S-E, rose, the flower, R-O-S-E, and also to rise up. He rose before the audience, R-O-S-E. And also wove, she wove a sweater, etc. And of course, in those spelling forms, we have plenty of irregular spellings and irregular pronunciations. If you'll notice that most of these irregular pronunciations are just a variation in vowel sound. The consonants are pretty constant, but you have a slight change in the consonant. For example, in the lone tone family, you have none and done. N-O-N-E is pronounced none, not known. D-O-N-E is pronounced done, not done, like he was done, or she had none. And the word gone, G-O-N-E, is not gone, it's gone. But as I've said before, most of these words, virtually all of them, are such common words that you will learn them very easily and you'll learn to spell them easily. And of course, if you've been writing these words in cursive, your hand will be gaining that spelling knowledge because of the movements that it makes in spelling these words. So you hear them, you write them, and you see them, and you're using all of your senses to spell these words. In Lesson 104, we provide a full page of sentences so that you can see how these words are used in sentence form and how they are spelled. And of course, when you write these sentences, that's going to help you learn to spell all of these words. So I strongly urge you to write these sentences in cursive, because in cursive you learn directional discipline. You learn that the letters are connected together to form the particular word. So that's why I advise you to practice your cursive writing. Now in Lesson 105, we have another way of spelling long O, and that's O-A. And as I've said before, there are no silent letters in English. O-A together stand for long O, as in such words as road, coach, Joan, coat, boat, toast. T-O-A-S-T, toast. Now we do have the exceptions: source, court, and course. Slight variation in vowel sound. That's about it. And in the road family, you have the word broad, B-R-O-A-D, as in Broad Street. And of course, in that lesson, we also have provided sentences so that you can read these words in sentence form. Now, in Lesson 106, we find another way of spelling long O. Isn't that amazing? We had 5 different ways of spelling long A, and now how many ways have we learned to spell long O? We had O consonant E, we had O-A, and now we have O-W, as in bow, like a bow tie, mow the lawn, flow, grow, stow, own, thrown. And the exceptions in that spelling family is dough, D-O-U-G-H, and though, T-H-O-U-G-H, spelled with O-U-G-H, dough. In other words, in the word dough, which is the dough that you need when you're making bread, and sometimes money is called dough, D-O-U-G-H, the O-U-G-H, those 4 letters stand for long O, dough. And though is also the same, you have the same business with T-H-O-U-G-H. Some people who have wanted to reform our spelling have decided that though should be spelled T-H-O. Now, of course, you can do that if you like, but it's not going to be correct spelling. And in English, correct spelling is very important. You know, some educators say that, well, spelling isn't all that important. But I think you ought to tell that to Dan Quayle. Do you remember what happened to Dan Quayle? He added an E on the word potato. And for that, he was accused of misspelling and was then ridiculed by every comedian on TV. And it ruined his political life just because he put an E at the end of potato. So if you're going to write though, T-H-O, it's not going to be accepted in certain magazines which require the correct spelling. If you want to know how to spell words correctly, the best magazine to read is probably The New Yorker, because they are very, very careful about how words are spelled in that magazine. They have a very high standard of spelling if you are a writer and ever want to write for that magazine. In Lesson 106, of course, we have plenty of sentences so that you can read all of the words that you've just learned in sentence form. Now, in Lesson 107, we have another way of writing long O, just O by itself, as in such words as old, gold, bold, told, sold, or no, so. And you have your few exceptions also in that family. You have C-O-S-T, which is not coast, it's cost. Coast is spelled C-O-A-S-T, but cost is spelled C-O-S-T, and the word lost, L-O-S-T. There is no such word as lost. Lost is another one of those words that don't exist, so you've got to pronounce it lost. And in that spelling, and in that lesson, we also provide plenty of sentences so that you can read these words in sentence form. Now, in Lesson 108, we really just take up a bunch of irregular words. For example, two, and two. They're all pronounced the same. Two, T-O, T-O-O, two, and T-W-O. The first two is I went to the store, T-O. The second two, T-O-O, is he too is not feeling very well. That means also, he also. Two, T-O-O. And T-W-O, of course, is the spelling for the number two. Like I have $2, T-W-O. Now, the other family is where the O stands for you, as in do, who, you, and youth. D-O is do. What do you want to do? Who, of course, we know. Who are you? Y-O-U is you are here. Youth is a word that stands for young people. Youth. He is a youth of 12 years old. He's a teenage youth. And Y-O-U-N-G stands for young. How young is he? It's pronounced as if it were spelled Y-U-N-G with a short U, but it's Y-O-U-N-G. Now, of course, English was pronounced over the centuries. English pronunciations have changed. If you're familiar with Shakespeare, for example, you know that the words spelled in Shakespeare were pronounced quite differently from what they are today. In fact, in Shakespeare's time, spelling was pretty erratic because dictionaries did not exist. It was when dictionaries came into being that we then began to have, spelling forms that were, you might say, spelling forms that were made common, and which could not be changed. Although even in dictionaries, in many dictionaries, you will find some etymological history, which indicates that sometimes those words were pronounced differently. But as English pronunciation has changed over the years, and also has changed in different countries where English is spoken. For example, in England, they pronounced words differently than we do in the United States. And if you go to Australia, you'll find, for example, that you wash your face in a bison. Now, they pronounce face, face. And they pronounce basin, bison. In the United States, a bison is like a buffalo. And you don't wash, you don't, how would you say, you're not safe. We say safe here, not safe as they do in Australia, but that's neither here nor there. But these are the interesting things. When you go to these different countries where they speak English, English is pronounced a little differently here and there, but the print is the same. In other words, a newspaper in England, a newspaper in the United States, a newspaper in New Zealand or in Canada or in Australia, the spelling is virtually the same. There's very little difference in spelling. There is some difference, but not much. And it certainly doesn't make the reading any more difficult. Now, as I said in Lesson 108, you have all of those different words put into sentences. Now, in Lesson 109, we learned two more different vowel sounds. So in other words, English is not composed simply of 5 long vowels and 5 short vowels, but we've got a bunch of other sounds like the ah, the aw. And in Lesson 109, we learned the oo and vowels. Oo and as in good food. Good is and food is good food. And the words in those two spelling families are quite common, as boom, doom, bloom, groom, snooze, troop, coot, shoot. And in the family, you've got book, hook, look, took, nook, crook, shook. And of course, you've got the exceptions in those families. For example, soup is spelled S-O-U-P, and group is spelled G-R-O-U-P. And instead of the double O, you've got the O-U in both of those words. And in the spelling family, where you have nook and brook, you've got door and floor, and flood and blood, and boor, poor, and moor. So each of these spellings have to be learned on their own. And blood, for example, rhymes with mud, etc. In Lesson 110, we have sentences in which all of those words are used. And of course, you should write them in cursive so that you will learn to spell them correctly. In Lesson 111, we take up the sound spelled O-U-L-D. And that's an archaic spelling form. And they are common words like could, would, and should. Like, I could if I would. C-O-U-L-D. Could not, couldn't. Would not, wouldn't. Should not, shouldn't. Now, obviously those words were once pronounced differently, but the language has maintained their spelling. W-O-U-L-D is pronounced the same as wood, like the wood of a tree. Wood and wood. But they're two very different words. Although they sound alike, they're very different words and have different meanings. And in that lesson, we also provide you with sentences. I would go if I could. Couldn't I go? I would like to go, but I know I shouldn't. Should I go? No, you should stay. Should he go to school? He shouldn't if he has a cold, etc. Since these are such common words, you will have no problem learning them. Now, in lesson 112, we learned some more vowel sounds in English. We have the ow sound and the aw sound. Now, we already found the aw sound in the word all, A-L-L, but the ow sound is a new sound, and that's a new vowel sound. And you find it in such words as bow. Now, B-O-W is pronounced bow, but B-O-W is also pronounced bow, as in bow tie, a bow tie. But bow is when you bow before a sovereign. So you've got bow, how, now, wow, plow, howl, growl, brown, town, down, downtown, browse, bower. And then in the OU family, you've got ouch, couch. The ow sound is spelled O-U. So there are two ways to spell that particular ow sound, O-W and O-U, as in vouch, proud, cloud, pound, wound. Now, the word wound is spelled the same as wound, but a wound is an injury. And in our sour family, you have for, pour, your, forth, and mourn. And in the mouth south family, you have youth, Y-O-U-T-H. So those are the exceptions. And of course, as I said, the more you read, the more acquainted you will become with the spellings of these words. And in lesson 113, we have a full page of sentences in which these words are used. Now, believe it or not, we have another vowel sound in English, pronounced oi. Oi, as in boy. And that particular oi sound is spelled O-Y and O-I. For example, the word boy is spelled B-O-Y, but the word oil is spelled O-I-L. So you have O-I, coil, C-O-I-L, toil, T-O-I-L, broil, B-R-O-I-L. But in the O-Y spelling family, you've got Roy, soy, toy, etc. So you have to learn the two ways in which this particular vowel sound is spelled. O-Y, oi, spelled O-Y and O-I. Now in that particular lesson, we've got two syllable words in which these spelling forms are used, and also sentences in which you can read how these words are used in sentences. And of course, as I always urge you to do, is to write them in cursive. Now finally, we come to the long U, and as you've guessed, there's more than one way to write long U. The most common way, of course, is the U consonant E, as in such words as cube, C-U-B-E, tube, T-U-B-E, rule, R-U-L-E, plume, P-L-U-M-E, June, J-U-N-E, use, U-S-E, mute, M-U-T-E, cute, C-U-T-E. And in that lesson, we provide you with sentences and show you how those words are used. And of course, I hope you'll write them and write them in cursive. In lesson 116, we have a second way of writing long U, and that's U-E and U-I. So so far, we've learned three ways of writing long U. And as I said, we have no silent letters in English spelling. The U-E together stand for long U, and the U-I stand for long U. Now, the U-E is commonly found in such words as cue, blue, glue, fuel, and of course, there's just plain U, as in flu. The U-I you'll find in such words as juice, bruise, cruise, suit, fute. And then we have the odd word Q, Q-U-E, U-E. And that's from the French. That's why we have such a peculiar spelling, but its pronunciation is Q. And Q, as we know, means when you line up for something, you queue up for something. That's the way we spell that particular Q. Well, now that was lesson 116, and of course we've got sentences that you can see how those words are used. In lesson 117, we have another way of writing long U, EW and EU. And in such words, the EU is in such words as new, N-E-W, flew, F-L-E-W, crew, C-R-E-W, brew, B-R-E-W, grew, G-R-E-W. And the EU spelling form you'll find in such words as feud and deuce. Now, the exception in that spelling form is the word S-E-W, sew, like to sew, sew cotton, use cotton in a sewing machine, sew, S-E-W, to sew. And of course, there's also a word S-O-W, to sow. In other words, to spread seeds, which is two different words, two different meanings, two different spellings. Now, the word through, T-H-R-O-U-G-H, is one of those words that the spelling reformers would have preferred to spell as T-H-R-U. But as I said, reforming spelling in English has been a very difficult job, and because everybody has to agree to it, it simply won't happen. So if you see the word spelled T-H-R-U, it'll probably be used in an advertisement Or, for example, on a road, for example, the New York Thruway is spelled Thruway, the New York Thruway. So it has been adopted here and there, but normally the word is spelled Through. And the OUGH in that word stands for U, the sound U. We have sentences in that lesson also that'll help you learn to spell those words correctly. Now we have another sound in English, the sound, And can be spelled in English ER, IR, OR, UR, and EAR. And in lesson 118, we take up all three spellings. For example, the ER spelling you will find in such words as her, perk, germ, term, verse, serve. The IR spelling you will find in such words as sir, bird, third, chirp, dirt, shirt, birth, thirst. The UR spelling you will find in such words as curb, surf, lurk, Turk, earn, turn, hurt, lurch, splurge, nurse, curve, etc. And the EAR spelling form is found in such words as earn, learn, yearn, heard, pearl. And the OR spelling form you will find in such words as word, work, worm, worst, and worth. Now, this is quite a spelling challenge for you. And the only way you learn to spell these words is using them and writing them. The more times you write them, the more times you read them, the easier it will be to learn to spell them. Because many of these words are so common. For example, take the word girl, Girl. We use that every day. Take the word term. We use that in education all the time. Take the word skirt. That's a piece of clothing that is, often referred to. The word dirt. Well, we're always, cleaning up the dirt in the kitchen. Or the word surf. Now, that's a common word, S-U-R-F. Everybody will know what you're talking about. You're talking about surfing. Surfing the internet or surfing at the beach, you see. Nobody is going to spell that word S-I-R-F or S-E-A-R-F or S-O-R-F, It's S-U-R-F. Or burn, B-U-R-N. Now, in that same lesson, we give you some two-syllable words in which those spelling forms are used. And in lesson 118, we give you a full page of sentences which use those words. And you will become much more acquainted with their spellings. Of course, you use them frequently in speech. And you may have trouble spelling them, so read them. That's how you learn to spell, is to write the words, to read them, and of course, cursive writing is the best way to learn spelling. Now, in lesson 119, we take up another common spelling form, the LE at the ends of words. For example, able, cable, idle, rifle, ruffle, bottle, cattle, little, kettle, jingle, simple, dimple, candle. The O sound is spelled L-E, the L sound, hustle. That's an exception. Hustle, bustle, and rustle. In those words, the T is silent. Bustle, hustle, bustle, and rustle. So write these words, write them in the sentences that are in that same lesson, so you will learn how to spell them. Now in lesson 120, we once more go over the PH spelling of the F consonant sound. There are lots of words in which the F is pronounced PH, and those words generally come from Greek. Phil, Philip, Ralph, phone, phonics, phase, Philadelphia, philosopher, philosophy, photograph, telegraph, graphic, etc. All those words have where the F is spelled PH. The F is spelled PH. In lesson 121, we have the SH as spelled TI. Now, most of those words come from Latin, in which the TI was pronounced tio, as in nation, nation. But in English, nation is pronounced nation, station, ration or ration, lotion, motion, action, traction. Now that SH is also spelled SSI or CI or CE in such words as fission, mission, admission, facial, racial, special, musician, and ocean. Also in that lesson, SH is spelled CI, and SCI, and XI in such words as atrocious, ferocious, conscious, conscience, obnoxious, and also the SH sound is spelled SU and SSU in such words as sure, insure, assure, fissure, issue, and tissue. And continuing on in lesson 21, you will find that ZH, we have no letter for ZH in English, so it is spelled SI and SU as in fusion, confusion, illusion, intrusion, measure, pleasure, treasure, leisure. And also in that lesson, CH is spelled TU and TI in such words as capture, fracture, gesture, picture, question, indigestion, suggestion. And in that same lesson, we give you lots of sentences with those words. For example, the ocean can be ferocious. Ralph is a musician and won a special prize at the fair. Jeff went to the train station. Betty had a crucial question for the teacher. Thank you for being so patient, said Dad. She phoned the pharmacy for special lotion. Didn't you think that motion picture was obnoxious, etc.? So the only way you can learn to spell these words is to write them, and write them in cursive. And that's what I urge you to do. In Lesson 122, we take up the N sound, N consonant sound, as spelled KN, as in such words as knee, K-N-E-E, kneel, K-N-E-E-L, knit, K-N-I-T, knife, K-N-I-F-E, knack, K-N-A-C-K, knock, K-N-O-C-K, as a knock on the door, knob, the doorknob, K-N-O-B, knuckle, K-N-U-C-K-L-E, know, K-N-O, known, K-N-O-W-N, knowledge, K-N-O-W-L-E-D-G-E. Now, why do we have that spelling form? Probably because those words were pronounced differently, and so the pronunciation has changed, but not the spelling. In Lesson 123, we take up M as spelled M-B in such words as lamb, L-A-M-B. We don't say lamb, we say lamb. Jam, the door jam, J-A-M-B. Dumb, D-U-M-B. But in the word dumbbell, you hear the B. Crumb, C-U-R-M-B, crumb. But in the word crumble, the B is sounded, crumble. Okay, thumb, he is thumbing for a ride, or he is using his thumb. Bomb, B-O-M-B, the planes were going to bomb that particular town. They bombed it. Then the B is sounded if you add an ED in the past tense. Bombed. Or bombing. Bombing, you don't hear the B. They were bombing the town. The word climb, the B is not sounded, but he climbed, the B is not sounded either. Climbing, the B is not sounded either. So that's a spelling form in which the MB stands for M. Comb, C-O-M-B, stands for, MB stands for M, etc. In lesson, now there are two words spelled where the T is spelled BT, as in debt, like I am in debt, I owe money. It's pronounced debt, D-E-T, but it's spelled D-E-B-T. Or as in the word doubt, like I doubt it, D-O-B-T. The B-T is pronounced as T. Now, we have the silent H. I guess that's a consonant you could say is silent. In such words as hour, H-O-U-R, like what hour is it? We spell H-O-U-R. Honor, he's on the honor roll, H-O-N-O-R. Honest, H-O-N-E-S-T, the H is silent there. Ghost, G-H-O-S-T. Ghastly, G-H-A-S-T-L-Y. Rhyme, R-H-Y-M-E. That word rhyme, R-H-Y-M-E, is also spelled R-I-M-E. All of these different spelling forms, pose spelling problems, but as I say, the more you write, the easier it becomes to spell these words. Now, R is sometimes spelled W-R. R is sometimes spelled W-R. As in write, W-R-I-T-E, wrap, W-R-A-P, wrench, W-R-E-N-C-H, wrinkle, W-R-I-N-K-L-E. Then we have S in Lesson 126. where the S is spelled ST, as in castle. The T is silent, castle. But as I've said, they're not really silent, it's the spelling form. The ST stands for just S. Listen. Listen to me. Listen. It's not spelled Listen, it's Listen. And as I said, these words were probably pronounced differently, and that's why you've got these different spelling forms that have not been revised or reformed in English. And the reason why they haven't been revised or reformed is because the spelling helps you understand where the word came from. The etymology of the words are in the spellings themselves. Like the spelling itself is like a little museum which tells you about the etymology of the word. F is sometimes spelled FT, as in often, soften, although some people may say often. I often go there. But often, soften, softener, softening. K is also spelled as CH in some the K sound, as in character, choir, Christmas, chord, chorus, chemist, scheme, schedule, scholar. And of course, S is also spelled as PS in such words as psychic and psyche. And those two words are of Greek origin. And now we come to the final lesson. Believe it or not, we're at the end. This is the final lesson, and we're learning how Y sometimes is pronounced as a short I. You remember at the very beginning we said that there are 5 vowel letters and sometimes Y. Well, we saw that Y could be used as a long E at the ends of some words, like such as baby. But now it's also used as a short I in a bunch of words that are of Greek origin. Gym, hymn, myth, gymnast, mystic, system, rhythm, syrup, cryptic, physic, mystery, sympathy, synonym, symphony, physician, cylinder, typical, etc. So you've got all these wonderful words, and of course you'll be reading them in lots of sentences. Synonym, hypnosis, physical, etc. Well, we've come to the end of Alpha-Phonics. And what do you do after you complete Alpha-Phonics? Now you know how to read. Now you know how to read the English alphabetic system. You should be able to read practically anything that you now encounter. Now, after that, you will be learning English. You will be learning the English language. You will be expanding your vocabulary. You will be learning the meanings of new words that you encounter. You will be learning grammar. And the best way to learn grammar is to read good grammar and to see how others have written a good grammar. That's the way you learn to read and to write English, is by reading other good writers who were skilled at using the language. And so what I advise you to do, of course, is to get a copy of whole language, of Alpha-Phonics. Get a copy of this book so that you can use it at any time to go back and to learn our different spelling forms. For example, you've learned how there are 5 different ways of writing long A, different ways of writing long E, different ways of writing long I, different ways of writing long O and long U. And the only way that you can learn all of these different spellings is to do an awful lot of reading and do an awful lot of writing. Now, if you are a young person, you could go to many easy books. You know, there are many books that are easy to read for someone who has just learned English. You know, the famous Hardy Boys books, the Nancy Drew books, the Henty books. These books create a voracious reading appetite and set a healthy pattern for the lifelong pleasure of reading. And if you have any problems using the Alpha-Phonics book, you can always get in touch with the Samuel L. Blumenfeld Literacy Foundation in Windham, New Hampshire, for free consultation. In any case, anyone around the world who wants to learn English simply has to go through these videos, beginning with lesson 1, and you will learn to read English quite easily by going through all of these lessons, lesson 1 through 128. And incidentally, in those lessons where we did not provide sentences, you can make up your own sentences. Be creative. Learn how to teach yourself. You know, that's one of the best ways of learning is to teach yourself. And I hope that you have found these videos helpful in teaching you to read. Let me know if you have been helped. I would appreciate your emails and your comments on the YouTube videos. I'm very anxious to see how these videos can be improved, because if they can be improved, we'll just do them over again. Thank you for staying with us through 128 lessons, and I hope to meet you all someday. Thank you and goodbye.